coming to the 11 o'clock hour is really not the end of the world. You can manage that. Well, you can sleep in till 10:45, and if you hurry, you come in about 11:15, or maybe a little after the offering. But you can manage. You can do it. So think about it. You could get 8 or 10 hours sleep and still make it for the 11 o'clock before the preaching starts, about 20 or 25 after. That's not too difficult. Now, it's probably more difficult than the Thursday night supper, but it's not all that difficult. For some reason, Sunday night's a little more difficult. It may be what's in the TV guide that makes it more difficult. I don't know. But something makes it a little more difficult for folks. And then Thursday night service, a little more difficult. You can see this building ought to be full. But it's a little more difficult midweek service because you're on the verge of becoming a cult if you start coming to 3 services a week. You wouldn't want to be a fanatic. But now I'm going to make a major leap to where it really gets difficult. That's reading your Bible every day. You know it's difficult because you know how difficult it is, right? But let me show you what's really difficult. Is personal, private prayer. Now, you know how difficult that is, don't you? Because that's the thing you do the least of. You will do everything in this world for God before you will have a personal, dedicated, quiet time of prayer with God. And you know why? Because what I just told you about prayer, that is totally, totally spiritual. I said if you're alone. Now, when 2 people get together, it's not very difficult. Or you get a group together to pray, it's not that difficult. But you try one person, just you and God alone, you can't bring the flesh into it. Because who are you going to impress? There's nobody to hear you but God. You can't say any flowery words that'll impress, like the fellow that was praying one time. He was praying something like this. He says, "Now, dear omnipotent," which means all-powerful, God. You don't get it, huh? Anybody get what I just said? He's talking to God and interpreting for God what omnipotent means. Okay. See, I can see praying like that with another guy because I've impressed him that I know what this word omnipotent means. But I don't have to impress God. He already knows. But we're so accustomed. And so you'll notice then this is called a wrestling match. Put on the whole armor of God. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Luther was so conscious of the presence of the devil that he picked up an ink bottle and threw at him. But Luther was just that conscious of the presence of God as well. Because when you become that conscious of God's presence, you will become that conscious of the devil's presence. Verse 12, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood. But look what we wrestle against. Principalities. There must be a prince of those. Against spiritual powers. Against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Against spiritual wickedness in high places. Now this is hand-to-hand combat. And you will struggle and labor more in prayer than in any other spiritual exercise. And yet it is the most profitable. It's the most profitable exercise you can do. And that's praying. We need to stand. If you'll notice in verse 11, we're to put on the whole armor of God that we may be able to stand. We need to know who we stand against, and we need to know who we stand for. But in verse 13, we're supposed to withstand. Wherefore, gird up your loins with the armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, stand. To withstand is to oppose and to resist with determination. You know what they used to tell us in Bible college? You know, you'd have a big freshman class at Bible college, hundreds. The senior class was about 35 people when I graduated. 200 or 300 would go into the freshman class. 30 to 50 would come out at the senior class. Drop